My name is Emily Carter. I'm 28 years old, a freelance graphic designer out of Portland, Oregon. And the week I'm about to describe was supposed to be the beginning of me getting my life back together. 3 months before, I'd ended a relationship of 4 years. Not explosive, not traumatic, just slow and suffocating and eventually merciful. My therapist had suggested space, movement, something physical to reset the mind. So I found a cabin on VRBO in the Cascades, tucked at the end of a logging road, backing up to a river, surrounded by old-growth pines. 3 nights, not cheap, but the photos were extraordinary. Exposed wood beams, a stone fireplace that filled half the wall, a quartz kitchen counter that caught the afternoon light just right. The host, Greg, had over 55-star reviews. People called him attentive, warm, detail-oriented. One reviewer wrote, "Greg thinks of everything." I arrived at dusk on a Thursday. The pine air hit me the second I stepped out of the car, sharp and cold and clean, the kind of smell that reaches into your chest and opens something up. I punched the key code into the lock, heard it click, pushed the heavy door open. Inside, faint lemon cleaner, birch logs stacked by the hearth, a woven blanket folded over the arm of the couch. I set my sketch pads and my tin of herbal tea on the counter. I hung my jacket by the door. I exhaled my routine. That first evening was simple and slow. I boiled water on the gas stove, made chamomile, curled onto the couch. I streamed a podcast, a personal one I'd been following for months, a woman who'd left her career to walk across Europe. It was raw, unscripted, unlistenable to anyone who didn't know the host's voice well enough to appreciate the pauses. I opened my sketchpad and drew nothing in particular. I fell asleep by 10 with the fireplace, still breathing orange into the room. The first sign came at 3 a.m. I woke to a faint click from across the room. The thermostat on the wall had adjusted itself, down to 68 degrees. On the screen, the temperature blinked once, then held steady. I stared at it for a moment from the couch. Smart home system, probably. Hosts often pre-program overnight temperatures. I pulled the woven blanket tighter and went back to sleep. I told myself it was nothing. It almost was the next morning, Friday. I woke to a sound I hadn't set. The coffee maker was running. Not sputtering to life mid-cycle, but fully operational. Drip and hiss, the whole sequence already most of the way through. A mug sat beside it, not the one I'd used the night before for tea, a different one, a heavy ceramic thing with a ridged handle. Already waiting, I hadn't touched the coffee maker. I hadn't set a timer. I stood in the kitchen in my socks and looked at it for a long time. The coffee that poured out was my preferred blend, medium roast, low acid, the exact kind I'd mentioned. In the online check-in form, when asked about dietary preferences, the form had a notes field. I'd typed, "I bring my own coffee, medium roast. No need to stock anything special." Greg had responded, "Got it, you're all set." I drank it black, standing at the counter. Told myself the machine had a factory. Default timer. Told myself someone had preloaded the grounds as a courtesy gesture, maybe using the check-in notes. It was a stretch. I sketched outside on the porch until noon and tried not to think about it. The second flag came early afternoon when I returned from a short hike along the river trail. My phone buzzed with a notification from the rental's doorbell camera. Linked through Greg's host app, which I downloaded at check-in. Motion detected, 2:14 p.m. I opened the clip. It was me, walking up the path in my muddy boots, pausing to wipe them on the mat, reaching for the door. The angle was perfect. Face forward, full frame, shot from above the door. The timestamp matched my return exactly. While I was still watching the clip, a message came through on the host app. Greg. Emily. Love those hiking boots. Hope the trail was good. There's a laminated trail map on the fridge if you want to try the upper loop tomorrow. I looked at the map. It was already on the fridge. Magnetic, laminated, the upper loop highlighted in yellow marker. I stood there holding my phone. Muddy boots still on, river mud drying on the treads. Outdoor cameras were standard. The app had connected his camera to my phone. He'd seen me come back. It was friendly, not alarming, just a host being attentive. One reviewer had said he was detail-oriented. I set the phone on the counter, took my boots off by the door, and told myself he was just being a good host. Friday evening, I couldn't sleep. Not anxiety exactly, just the hyper-alertness that comes from too much silence, too much space. I put my flannel pajamas on at 8, settled by the fireplace with a book, watched the flames for a while. At 9 p.m. precisely, the lights in. The room dimmed. Not gradually. They dropped to about 40% in one step. I looked at the thermostat. 68, blinking. Then my phone lit up. A message from Greg. Cozy in the flannel PJs tonight? I stopped breathing. No photo attached. No mention of the camera. No smiley face. No, I can see on the thermostat you're keeping warm. Just that. 7 words. Accurate, specific. I was wearing gray flannel. He'd used the right word. There was no way to know that from an outdoor camera. The flannel was entirely indoors. I was on the couch, facing the fireplace, well away from any window. The only angles that would reveal what I was wearing were from inside the room. My eyes went slowly to the smoke detector on the ceiling above. The television. There was a glint in it, small, circular. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. I'd looked at that smoke detector a dozen times since arriving. I hadn't seen it until now. I sat very still. Then the bedroom television turned on. It flickered once, blue static, and resolved into a video. My podcast. The one from the night before. The walking across Europe woman. The raw, unscripted one that almost no one else listened to. It wasn't playing from the beginning. It was paused mid-episode. At a moment I remembered. The host had been talking about her last relationship. About the specific ache of knowing something is already gone before you've admitted it out loud. I had cried a little at that part. The timestamp on the video matched the exact minute I'd fallen asleep the night before. Wherever the playback was coming from, it had captured not just what I was watching, but when I'd stopped watching it. The TV looped. My voice. Someone else's grief in my speakers. Door lock beeps once, then again. Different tone. Smart locks have status. Tones. 1 beep. Code entered. 2 beeps. Door released. I hear both? Footsteps? Or the old board settling? Or both? Time too close. Pine scent fades. Something warmer underneath. Sweat. Mine. Already. Coffee turns bitter on a tongue. Fathesant. Had coffee in hours. Phantom taste. Fear taste. Ceiling fan slows, or drops to a low pulse, then nothing. Like someone cut the signal. Red blink on the smoke detector. No, not smoke. Recording. Breath near the bedroom door. Just the other side. Handle turns. Turns. Doesn't stop. Click. I don't think. Window. Stuck. Old wood. Swollen frame. I pull. Until something gives. Glass doesn't shatter cleanly. It gives in chunks, inward, and the cold air comes through in a rush that smells like the river. Like pine again. Like outside. I go through the window. Silence. Absolute and brief and real. I drove 4 miles down the logging road before I stopped shaking enough to dial 911. I sat in the car with the heat on and the doors locked and the overhead light on, and I told the dispatcher everything in the order it happened. They sent 2 officers. They searched the cabin for an hour. Found no signs of forced entry. No additional cameras inside. They said only the exterior ones already disclosed in the listing. The television, Greg explained via the app, had likely autoplayed based on my viewing history, a streaming service quirk. The thermostat and lights were on preset schedules, he said. His message about the flannel pajamas? He claimed he'd made a lucky guess. It had been cold that night, and he'd seen me come in with a bag from an outdoor retailer. Just a cozy cabin joke, he wrote. Sorry if it felt off. The officers had no grounds to do anything further. Number. Camera had been visibly detected. No crime had technically occurred. I checked out that night. I sent a formal complaint through VRBO and requested a full refund, which was disputed for 11 days before being partially granted. The flannel pajamas were still folded on the bathroom shelf when I left. I'd put them in a heap on the floor. Before I went through the window, somebody had folded them. Neatly, the way someone else folds laundry, not the way you fold your own. I check smoke detectors now. Every stay, I use a flashlight at an angle. I look for the glint, but sometimes my podcast plays through its episodes, and I don't remember pressing play. And sometimes I think about Greg's review page, 55 stars. He thinks of everything. He really does. I'm Raj Patel, software engineer, Austin, Texas. The conference was 4 days downtown, the kind where you shake 500 hands and remember none of them. I don't do well in hotels during work trips. The sameness of them, the corridors, the white noise machines in the walls. So I booked a loft on Airbnb instead. Modern space, exposed brick, good reviews. Host named Lisa, responsive, warm, replied within minutes at every stage of the booking process. The loft was on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse district building. High ceilings, bamboo breakfast bar, a balcony that looked out over the convention center lights. When I arrived late on Sunday night, conference badge already printed, suits already pressed in my carry-on, the place smelled of vanilla from a plug-in diffuser near the door. I set my protein shaker on the bamboo bar. I poured a shake with ice from the hotel next door. I sent emails until midnight. It was comfortable. It was what I needed. The first anomaly was physical. Shower ran cold mid-rinse, water pressure dipping suddenly, then recovering. Lisa's welcome note had mentioned it. Plumbing runs a little quirky. On the 4th floor, just a building thing. Stick with it, and it evens out. I took that at face value and moved on. Conference day 2. I came back at noon for a break. Headache, too many handshakes. Found my protein shaker on the bamboo bar where I'd left it, but the lid was off. The powder residue on the inner rim looked freshly mixed, damp, clumped differently than old residue, which dries out and goes powdery. I had no memory of using it that morning. I checked my phone. No calendar entry, no meal log. I'd been at the convention center from 7:30 a.m. to noon without returning. I drank the shake. Vanilla protein, which was what I always used. The taste was off by a fraction, slightly sweeter, like someone had added something. I told myself it was a new batch. I took 2 Advil and went back to the conference. The second flag came that evening. When I returned to the loft, the balcony chair had moved. It had been pushed back against the railing when I left. It was now centered on the balcony, facing inward toward the slider, my habitual reading position. I had a specific habit of sitting, centered, turned slightly toward the city lights. I did it automatically every night. I had done it the previous night while I was standing looking at the chair. A message came from Lisa. Raj, great conference tie today. Loved the knot. I'd worn the tie under my jacket all day. The knot had been a full Windsor, the way my father had taught me. I'd had the jacket on in almost every photo I'd seen taken at the event, including a panel shot someone had posted to the conference hashtag. In the panel shot, my collar was entirely covered. You couldn't see the tie at all. I told myself she'd seen me somewhere. The convention center was 2 blocks away. She knew which conference. She'd made a guess ties. Good conference, good not, safe assumption. I stood on the balcony and watched the city and told myself that for long enough to believe it. Flag. 3 ended the experiment. Midnight, back at the loft. Conference badge off, jacket hung, shake in hand. I opened the fridge for the almond milk. I kept there, and the light flickered on by itself before I touched the handle. Half a second before my hand reached the door. I stood there with my hand hovering over the fridge handle, and I looked at it. Then my phone buzzed. Lisa, added some ice cubes to your shaker so it's ready to go. Enjoy the balcony view. B. City's gorgeous tonight. My shaker was on the bar. I hadn't opened it. I looked at the balcony slider. It was open a precise inch. A deliberate inch. Not the draft gap of a window that hadn't fully caught. A considered, controlled inch. There was no wind. The curtain wasn't moving. Then I went to the bathroom because I needed to think, and the mirror was fogged. I hadn't taken a shower. The fog was dense and even, the kind of condensation that takes time to build. In the center of the mirror, there was a handprint. 5 fingers large, pressed flat against the glass. Palm and all 5 fingers in perfect contact, then dragged slightly downward. The drag of someone leaning into their own reflection. Not like an accident. Like a gesture. I had wiped that mirror clean that morning. I am specific about it. The fog was from a shower I hadn't taken in a room I'd been away from for hours, and there was a hand in it that wasn't mine. The print reforms. I'm watching it. Steam from nowhere, rising slow. Sink drips fast, irregular, like a pulse. Door 2. The hallway rattles. Not knocked, rattled. Loose in its frame. The way a door rattles when someone pushes against it from the other side without committing. Protein powder on the bar. Lid knocked over. Spills slow, sticky powder on bamboo. Vanilla fills everything. Too much of it. Clogs the back of the throat. Tie is in my hand. Still looped, not unknotted. I'd meant to hang it. Now it feels tight, around nothing, just itself. Just the silk draped over my fist. Chair scrapes. Behind me, on the balcony. Chair legs on concrete. The scrape of weight shifting. I don't look. I grab the go bag. Every conference, I pack light enough to run. Old habit from a story someone told me once. I never knew why I kept it. Now I do. Lock fails, or I fail the lock. Fingers wrong on the keypad. Code I've entered 30 times. Useless now. Stairs. Pound them all the way down. I was in a cab to the Marriott by 12:23 a.m. I filed a report with Airbnb that same night from the hotel bed, fully dressed. Shoes still on. Lisa denied any access to the unit. The access log for the smart lock, she said, showed only my entries. The police conducted a welfare check. When they entered the loft, it was spotless. The almond milk in the fridge was full, not half gone. As I'd seen it, the protein powder was containerized. The mirror was dry and clear. No evidence. No grounds. Airbnb issued me a partial credit after a week. I only stay in hotels for work travel now. Chains, specific chains where every room is on a database, where the card reader logs timestamps, where the housekeeping roster is documented, where there is a paper trail so dense that anyone who enters a room is accounted for. But sometimes, even there, the ice bucket is already full when I haven't asked for it. And I think about vanilla, and about what it means when someone says, enjoy the view, before you've told them you're going to look. The tie hangs on a hook behind my bedroom door at home. I haven't worn it again. Sometimes I look at it before I leave for work and think about full Windsor knots and how specific they are. How you'd have to be close, really close, to identify one. Lisa had been very close. I'm Kayla Brooks, registered nurse, Miami, Florida. 16 years in a trauma unit, which means I have a fairly high tolerance for things going sideways. I've held someone's hand while they died. I've told families things no one should have to. Say I do not panic easily. The beachfront condo had been my idea. Girls' weekend, 4 of us, 3 nights, no husbands, no kids, just wine and sand, and the kind of conversation you can only have at 1 a.m. when the world feels far enough away. We found it on VRBO. Host named Tom, retired local. The listing said, lifelong resident of the area, passionate about sharing the best of coastal Florida. His reviews were warm and specific. One woman wrote, Tom made us feel completely at home. Another, he's so thoughtful. He remembered details I mentioned in passing and surprised us at check-in. We arrived Friday at noon. The salt air was thick and heavy and wonderful. That full-body Gulf smell that gets into your hair within minutes. We unloaded wine, 2 bottles of rose, and 1 Nalbec. My crocheting kit in its canvas zipper bag. Beach towels and sunscreen. The wicker table on the balcony still smelled faintly of coconut, previous guest's sunscreen baked into the weave. We claimed our rooms, changed into swimsuits, and were on the beach by 12:30. The first thing was small enough to dismiss without discussion. When I'd gone to hang my sweater in the closet before we left for the beach, the closet door was open half an inch. Not wide, just a crack, consistent and deliberate. The kind that stays because something is preventing it from fully closing. I pushed it shut. It stayed. I figured it had swung open in the draft from the balcony slider. We were out the door in under 3 minutes. I didn't mention it. Post-beach. First red flag. We came back sunburned and sandy and laughing. And when I went into my room to rinse off, there was a towel on my bed, folded with military precision, tight hospital corners, the long fold crisp and even, the kind of fold that requires a flat surface and deliberate attention. Not the loose fold of a guest or a quick cleaning, the trained fold of institutional laundry. A nurse notices this. I hadn't put that towel there. I'd used my towel on the beach, and it was still in my hand, wet and rolled. The towel on the bed was dry, cool from the closet, folded in a way none of us would think to fold it. I mentioned it to my friends. They laughed, made service, probably a scheduled mid-stay touch-up. We were busy. We let it go. The second flag came that night after dinner. I'd had 2 glasses of wine on the balcony and gone inside to rinse my glass at the kitchen sink. When I'd come out for dinner, my glass had had a smudge of lipstick on the rim. My shade, a deep berry red that I've worn for 10 years, very specific. When I came back in after dinner, the glass had been rinsed. Clean rim, water still beaded. On the inside, like it had been done recently. The faucet handle was slightly damp. My friends were still on the balcony. No one had come inside. Then my phone buzzed. Tom, Kayla, that crochet scarf pattern is coming along beautifully. The teal really suits you. I looked out at the balcony. My crocheting kit was on the wicker table, and yes, I'd been working on a scarf, a teal wool blend, about 10 inches finished while we talked. The balcony faced the beach. There was an exterior walkway along the building. Someone with access to that walkway could theoretically see the balcony from the right angle. I checked from the slider. You could see the wicker table from the walkway, just barely. In daylight. It was dark by then. I said nothing to my friends. I put my phone in my pocket and finished the wine. I hadn't wanted any more. The third flag came at 2 a.m., and I know the time exactly because I was watching the clock on the microwave when it happened. My friends were asleep. I was on the couch with the overhead off and the lamp on, the quietest part of the night, the good crocheting hours. The yarn was pooled in my lap, teal, one large ball of it, looped through my left hand the way I always do it, hook moving in the specific left-handed motion that I learned from my grandmother and have never changed. The yarn ball rolled across the tile floor. Not a nudge, a deliberate roll, 3 feet, then a slow arc toward the kitchen as the momentum worked through it. I hadn't moved. My lap was still. No vibration, no draft from the slider. The ball just moved and then stopped. And the apartment was very quiet. My phone was face down on the coffee table. It buzzed once. I turned it over. Tom, hook faster tomorrow. Watching your progress. No cameras were disclosed in the listing. I went into the bedroom and looked at my crocheting bag, still on the wicker side table from earlier in the evening. I took out the spare hook, the backup, the same gauge, a different brand. It was bent. Not kinked, the way metal bends when it's stressed, bent, curved deliberately through the middle. The way you'd bend something by applying even pressure. With 2 hands. I turned the hook the same direction every stitch, a left-handed motion. My hooks develop a particular wear pattern on the thumb grip. This bend went the opposite way. Someone right-handed had bent this hook. Someone with a specific grip, specific pressure. Someone who had been in this room while I was on the beach got the bent needle on the wicker table. I don't put it down. It's in my hand. The lamplight shifts, not off, just changed, the way light changes when a shadow crosses it. Ocean sound, louder now, close, like a slider opened that I didn't open. Salt hits the back of the throat. Sharp wine. I finished an hour ago, goes sour in the memory of my tongue. Glass cracks. Did I hear that? No, not yet. Yarn drapes from the couch to the floor. Teal thread. It tightens around my ankle. No. The hook is in my hand. My hand. Stay with what's real. Balcony shadow. Tall and thin. Against the slider glass. I can't tell if it's moving. Friends. In the bedroom. 2 of them. My voice comes out wrong. Whispered when I mean to shout. The slider isn't jammed. I've opened it 100 times. Now it doesn't move. Now it absolutely does not move. I pound. The frame. Both fists. It gives. Everyone out. Now we were loading the car in our pajamas. By 4 a.m., 3 nurses. 2 of my friends were also nurses, with good spatial memory and high stress. Thresholds and 16 combined years of making quick calls in terrible months. We weren't confused. We weren't imagining it. We filed police reports from the road. Officers went to the unit at 7 that morning. They found no signs of unauthorized entry. The bent crochet hook, which I had put in my bag, was, when I looked for it in daylight, gone. Not in the bag. Not in the pockets. Not in the car. I had held it in my hand from the moment I picked it up to the moment I put it in the bag. It was gone. Tom refunded the remaining 2 nights within the hour. Apologetic, baffled, sorry for the confusing experience. No admission, no explanation. He kept his listing up. As of several weeks later, he still had 4.5 stars. I've crocheted since then. The left-handed motion. Same hook gauge, same teal wool, different project. The muscle memory comes back fast. That's what 16 years of a repeated action does. It becomes automatic, invisible, the kind of thing only someone watching very closely would ever notice. The replacement hook bends. Sometimes when I press too hard, I always check the bend direction when it does. Mine bends the same way every time. Way it bent in Tom's condo bends the other way. I haven't forgotten that.